Hello, welcome. This is the talk about the power of creative communities. My name is Ronny Krieger. I'm a board member of the VUT and the general manager for Patreon in Germany. And I have three wonderful guests here, Julia, Sandira, and Lutz. And I'll let you introduce yourself. Julia, do you want to go first?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very sorry to not be with the others in Cologne, but as a team, we have kind of decided to limit travel as much as we can. And as we had the opportunity to do this via digital form, we decided to do so. But I'm with you in heart. As I said, my name is Julia Köhn. I'm the project director of Germany's federal government Center of Excellence for the Culture and Creative Industries. Yes, long title, complicated title, but our aim is to create formats, projects, and events to enhance the visibility of the culture and creative industries and show its innovation potential, especially at the intersection to other economic areas and societal topics. And communities and networking structures are, of course, very vital for that. They're actually the basis of our work. So I'm excited about this talk because when we create new ideas and solutions, we actually actively look to bring a diverse group of people together with different perspectives and horizons. And for us, that's always been the kind of the most important thing in order to create and to come to solutions for challenges and problems that we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. It's almost as if you are here because we see you on a big screen, so it's almost real. Sandira, do you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Sandira. I'm based in Berlin. For the past 20 years, I've been working with artists, and I've always lived with this motto: if you surround yourself around creative minds, inspiring people, magic happens. I'm currently working for Factory Berlin as a curator and researcher. And our Factory is a community of 3,500 members in the fields of tech, science, art, and we have startups and corporates. You can find anyone from 12 years old to 60 in our campus. We have a high school and a developer school called Code University. And I currently run the Artist in Residence program with 35 participants. Ronny being one of the mentors of the program. And this is our second edition, and I'm glad to be here as part of this panel and just talk about that.
Great. Lutz?
Yeah, my name is Lutz Leichenring. I'm also based in Berlin. I'm the spokesman and board member of the Berlin Club Commission since 10 years. We are the representing body for promoters and clubs in Berlin with about 300 members. I'm also one of the initiators of the project United We Stream, where we gathered more than 90 cities all over the world and more than 2,000 artists in this crisis, give them a stage, connected venues all over the world, and streamed as much as we could. And I also part of a group that initiated a global nighttime recovery plan, which is a global project of about 130 people. People from Harvard University, from University of Pennsylvania, but also Fraunhofer Institute, and we try to develop chapters after chapter about different challenges that we are facing in these times and try to create sustainable solutions.
You also raised quite a substantial amount of money. The last time I heard it was a pretty big figure with United We Stream.
Yeah, we raised in Berlin about 550,000 euro, but globally about 1.5 million.
That's quite an accomplishment. So,
thank you.
Great. So the idea about this whole panel, when we're thinking about the VUT Indie Days, we're always trying to think of like new panel ideas, maybe ideas that haven't been explored at other conferences. And for years now, we have this whole internet theme of you don't need anyone else anymore. You can all do it by yourself. You don't need a record label. You don't need a publisher. You don't need a manager. You're powerful. You can control everything, which in theory is true and has meant quite a shift to a lot of the, quite honestly, shitty deals that many creatives have been facing for years. But at the same time, it's a quite lonely process, and I think a lot of very, very interesting projects still happen when creative minds come together and combine skill sets, etc. So this is really what I would like to talk about at this panel, is from all of your experiences, what is the ultimate power of a creative community? How can that look like? I had the pleasure to be part of one of the United We Stream setup calls at the beginning, and it was quite crazy to see a Zoom call with like, I don't know how many participants, but it was a bit like a, 150 maybe more, I don't know.
Like a town hall.
It was pretty crazy. And then seeing that, in the end, Lutz got one thing aligned with all these different minds, etc. And probably most of the participants wouldn't really have been able to come up with ideas on their own. And I think ultimately this for me was a good example of a lot of people coming together and then shaping a project that everyone will benefit from. Do you want to talk a little bit about the process and where the individuals came together as a group and yeah?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it was a shocking moment when there was Friday the 13th and we had a lockdown and a lot of people were unemployed or at least out of work. In this moment, I think to create an energy was not so easy, but we made it, and I think a lot of the a lot of it was based on that we had, like, we did 20 years of advocacy work before. We did unite the scene, we bring people together, we were advocating for our needs already. So there was a lot of trust already in the club commission built up, and when we also reached out to Arte concert, they decided in 3 days if they want to participate with us and give us every day a TV slot all over Europe. So you can imagine a lot of things that we basically brought into this project was built on a lot of collaborative work that we did in the recent years. We launched the project in 5 days. It started basically in my living room with some phone calls. We were one of the first ones we reached out because we didn't have a clue how we're gonna raise money and also have a structure that is a trustful structure where people also are able to donate money, and then we can also distribute it in the right way. A lot of people in these calls I never met in my life. But it was funny to after a few months meeting them in person, and now this whole project turned into a Verein, a non-for-profit organization, and I'm happy that we created kind of also a sustainable structure out of this energy in the beginning.
Sandira, in your case, the factory has this creators lab where, at first it feels a bit alien because when you think of like, a co-working space or like startups and then you have creators, their mindsets are usually quite different. So I would love to hear how this idea came about and what you actually do.
So actually, Factory, it's known for people in tech, in corporates, even Twitter and Uber was founded there, and SoundCloud is there. We had this artist, this producer called Martin Iyer, and he met the founders at Factory and wanted to bring the art scene to this space and thinks that we should coexist. Eventually, he opened up this creators lab and built a music studio and initiated the artist residency, which is what I'm currently running. So it's really a unique space. We call it kind of it's not like co-working, but it's like a third space. So it's not yet home, it's not yet work, but the ecosystem feeds off each other. And when you have artists in a room with coexisting with businesses, they think alike, and new ideas and solutions flourish this way. So we created this space to make this partnerships with artists and businesses exist. So it's quite unique.
So how does the creative exchange actually look like in detail? Is it two isolated creative communities, or is it the creators collaborating with each other in the tech world, or like what kind of collaborations are going on day to day at Factory?
Well, in order to do that, we have to create programs such as the Artists in Residence program, and we have 3,500 members. They're actively on our events, whether they're hybrid or online. And this is also the way to initiate communication for those you're interested in working with, or you just want to get to learn what their practice is. And that's kind of how it happens, through these talks, and through our mentors as well. We really have mixed networks. We have everyone from Patreon, Twitch, Club Commission in Berlin, and leaders in the industry who have impacted, such as United We Stream and Club Commission doing something about the economy. And when you put people in a room together that are creative, magic happens, and this is proof, and it happens, and artists need a space, and yeah, this is how this Creators Lab kind of came about.
And Julia, if I understand what you do correctly, then you're basically there to provide knowledge and funding for creators to be active. Can you tell us a little bit more about the activities that you do day to day?
Yeah, of course. We are a project that is there, as I said, to create visibility for the sector of the culture and creative industries as a whole, so for all the 11 sub-markets that there are. And we don't have funding for individuals, so we're not a government funding institution, but we carry out projects. For example, we bring together, as we did in August, 300 people from different areas of the culture and creative industries, but also from other economic areas, from universities, and from the kind of civil society. And we work on solutions how to turn this crisis that we're facing into opportunities and into chances. So we provide platforms where people can meet, we provide platforms where people can work together, and also we do analysis and, as you said, knowledge exchange. And in terms of bringing people together, I mean, what we see with the culture and creative industries, and it's many micro enterprises, solo entrepreneurs, freelancers, that is a huge advantage in a world where everything moves really fast and very agile, because we are all very flexible and we can adapt to new situations. But of course, it also has a number of disadvantages, being it limited resources, infrastructure, and communities can supply access to people, to knowledge, to opportunities and technology. And I think over the last months, what we've seen is that communities have the great strength to make people not feel alone, and realize that when we kind of come together and we work on mutual issues in a group, we can achieve much more than if we're alone. And we provide the platforms in order to make this exchange reality. And also we, as I said, create projects that are then being turned into reality. So it's a mix of events, projects, and knowledge.
I would assume a lot of that in the past was probably physical meetups, etc., etc. So when that was no longer possible, how did you pivot? How are you doing it now?
When this whole situation started, we acted really quickly in turning kind of our activities around and built a mix of online events. We have developed a lot since the beginning of April, as probably everyone else did as well. We started with kind of streamed Zoom situations, and then soon realized, well, I mean, that is not really working. If you want to have a kind of a complex and really engaging event, you need more like a studio setup, more like a TV show. So we've developed our online events a lot in order to allow for interaction and community work also in the events. We, as I said, have a analysis part in our project. So we started to collect data and do kind of an analysis of the situation of the culture and creative industries in this COVID situation and published that. And also we initiated a large number of online kind of platforms for institutional players to engage with each other, to bring people that would maybe meet in person on an online platform to kind of bring their opinions together, to bring their statements together. And then from that kind of create a one voice situation for the industry. So it's a mix of events, of kind of hybrid situations, as was mentioned before by the others already, that we have still people engaging physically, but finding ways to bring that to the community in a digital form that doesn't necessarily mean you need to move or you need to be places where we are. And I think that has created let's say a number of different offers and opportunities that are not bounded by physical space.
Yeah, and in your capacity, I would assume that for a lot of the creative fields that you're representing, you also probably some kind of an intermediate to like the political parties and decision makers, etc. And when you keep hearing, you know, for understandable reasons, the times of events and parties are over, and let's not do anything, and then you have this conflict with the creative landscape that you are representing. Like, how can you act as a translator or as a missionary for that, to say we can't do nothing, there must be something that we can do? It's like, is that part of your current job as well, to try and intermediate and make sure that it's not completely forgotten?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that it's not about party is over. This is not the issue. The issue is that there's people working in this industry, and there's people that are creating values in this industry that for, of course, understandable reasons, are not able to carry them out in the way that they used to, and make a living out of that in the way they used to. So, of course, we're taking on these situations, we are combining them, and as we are kind of a project of the government, but we're not the government, we have the ability to collect these voices, to collect these these statements, and we discuss them with, in our case, the Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, as they are the ones that we are working, that kind of the project is located with. But one other important part is really the providing this platform for these different players in the industry to actually discuss these issues together. I mean, for the music industry, for example, there is now this forum of the German music industry, because there was a realization that together it's a lot easier to kind of create a voice that is heard by politicians and the government. And by our analysis and by the platforms that we're providing, we're kind of allowing for these voices to come together and then reach the target groups.
Yeah, Lutz, I think that's one role you found yourself in quite a bit as well lately. I mean, it kind of started with the concept of United We Stream, temporary fix. Okay, locations are closed for a little bit, let's make sure they can survive. And now it's becoming apparent, okay, maybe it's a little longer, or maybe we have to come up with concepts. And it's hard enough when you're focused on one area, but now it's not just Berlin, it's like German-wide, and if I understand you correctly, it's even a global phenomena. So how do you deal with lobbying towards politicians on a national or global scale even? Like, is it all about media attention, or how do you go about that?
No, I think it's all about solutions, and I think what we really have to realize is that this kind of crisis, which is a global crisis, which is also a crisis that affects our whole societies, is something that we only can solve together. And whoever thinks that we can solve this with curfews and prohibitions and threats, I don't think these people probably didn't understand the dimension of what's going on. So I think we have to understand what are these different needs are of people, and then find ways. We learned a lot about, we are all like little virologists and epidemiologists nowadays, and I think we all at least learned what are the basic rules that you have to do to stay safe, and to don't infect each other. And And I think that must be the goal, to think about collaboration, and that's what I think is also my feeling, that there's a lot of openness that came out of this crisis. People are more open to step out of their comfort zone, out of their bubble, and speak with other people about solutions, and I think that needs to be done much more, especially the higher the infection rates are, the more we have to think about a collaborative way of solving it. And the work we do is exactly looking into these kind of collaborations. Where are like similar challenges, and they are globally, so we can learn from each other, from doing pilot programs, doing showcases, sharing this with others, discussing it afterwards, bringing people from academics together with operators. We just had a call with a former professor in the United States who talked also about incentivizing people when they do the distancing and the wearing mask, not just about always punishing people about it. So it's also, I think we have to rethink a lot of things that we do and use technology, use partnerships that are out there. And I'm always surprised when I listen to these different stakeholders on a global level. So we talk to people from Sydney, from Tokyo, from LA. So it's really like from all over the world, a collaborative project. And they also give the impression that there is not enough understanding. For instance, the discussion about young people now partying. It's not about that this is like just a hedonistic scene which doesn't understand rules. It's also about that there is also maybe sometimes not a family in the city. People move to cities, left their families, and so the communities they build up are replacing their families. So to sit at home for like 6 months is not an option. So we also have to think about what can be alternatives. And we thought about streaming, we talked about digital ways. I think everybody is an expert in this now. But now let's also talk about personal interactions, and we also did a lot of great stuff in summertime. The first time ever we met with district representatives who offered us space, public space, to do events, because we knew that, or we learned that public or outdoor events are much safer than indoor events. So there also were now trustful partnerships built up, which also will help us for next years to have spots all over the city on public space, which was unthinkable a couple of years ago, that there were like spontaneous raves happening in a certain area. So I think we're also step by step getting better, but we also have to think much more micromanaging way than in a top-down way. That's just we just divide our societies in that form.
It almost sounds like, as bad as the crisis is, you're probably bringing a couple of people together that normally didn't have a lot of interaction. When you're talking about professors from Harvard or whatever, and like an underground club in Berlin, they probably had very little interaction before, and now all of a sudden they are finding themselves discussing the same cause and coming from different intellectual levels and backgrounds, and that sounds like a perfect example of creative collaboration to me.
Yeah, and I think it's also needed, because this is really, it's probably the biggest crisis that the Berlin culture had since at least World War II. So we are really in a dramatic situation. There, I think the help that we get from governments is also now received by also groups that fell through the rooster for the last month. So it's getting better and better the more we also communicate with governments and talk about what's going wrong and what could be done better. But we also don't know how long this crisis is gonna be, and the uncertainty is probably the biggest threat that we have, because nobody really can plan what to do. People leave also certain jobs or certain professions, change this, and I know when you talk to a club owner, he says like 50% of my success or our success is the team. And you have from the wardrobe to the booking, like this is a family, and if this kind of splits up and you lose a big part of it, that's also probably a lot of the success which you're gonna lose then.
Yeah, makes total sense. I think it's the general vibe that's created around the venue, is the community there. It's not just the guests, it's also the people who are working there.
Just to add one more sentence, because I think people also want to hear solutions, and as soon as we see that the rates are going down again, hopefully soon, we will definitely bring in our part in the way of rapid testing. Because the idea behind rapid testing is that you find the people who are infectious, and not the people who are really already sick. Because sick people you probably don't find with this rapid test, but you will find the people who are infectious. And that's something which is, I think, very important, because if you are in a room and you know that everybody did a test, that's just a way of just more opening up and being feeling much safer. And we have to make studies around this. We have to prove that these tests also are working. And I will want to encourage that we are more thinking towards the technology behind it, and finding out how we can do this more decentralized in different communities, rather than everything pyramid, top-down organization.
Well, you can't do anyway if the rules are different everywhere all the time, so it's kind of hard to apply one rule to every place if the rules differ.
Yeah.
I read the other day, I think it was yesterday, that a sports event called High Rocks, they are now also able to have their events with like tests that they provide, etc. So I think there is some activities leading in the right direction. Sandira, when you have your artist residencies, artists can also be quite competitive. So when you have selected the finalists and they're all coming there, are they in a competition, or do they actually collaborate? And if they do, can you tell us about maybe an example of creators that came into the artist residency that did something, whether expected or unexpected, together?
We take in a mix of artists. So we have artists who have done like Harvard or MIT residencies. We have scientists, professors. We mix them with musicians, and then visual artists. Of course, some are they work alone, and it's hard to collaborate. There could be potentially in traditionally egos maybe, but these are all broken down. I think it's important to meet other people and exchange new ideas. For instance, we had a 3D printer who just does 3D printing, and met this artist who works in AI music, who trained an AI to battle himself in beatboxing. And he created this vocal sculpture with the mill in New Jersey, and this 3D printer artist printed the vocal sculpture, and now we have like this totem to talk about. And when we pass by businesses or startups, they like to see this kind of real fruitful collaborations. This little vocal sculpture, she did this with other artists in the residency. It became this like crazy collaboration project, and generated a lot of press articles. They worked with Crystal, a drag queen in the UK, for RuPaul's Drag Race. There's just so much different intersections. Music artists working with visual artists to build like augmented reality filters and experiences for their music videos. But yeah, there's definitely a challenge with creatives in a room, but it's really fun to break down these like egos, if you must, to find solutions.
Yeah, and I think egos can be part of it, but it can also be creators sometimes have a tendency to be introverts. So
Yeah,
you could
that's
be
true.
in a room full of people that are all focused on themselves.
Sure.
So do you actively do that, or does it happen organically? Do you then
Break them
break
apart. Well,
put them in rooms together
yeah.
and say you're not going to get out before you discuss this idea? Like what do you do?
Well, I facilitate it, and I'm very open and discuss these matters and feedback from like the previous residencies and through some research. This is also why it's important we have these mentors. We have 20 of them each residency, to come in and just humbly tell their story. And this brings kind of unity together in a room with people who are all just kind of focused on a story and with someone they respect and are influential, and this breaks down walls. And I think that having these mentors and inspiring leaders around in Berlin or the world really help foster this like unity and collaboration. And I think it's necessary. In chaos, artists work best, and they find solutions even during these COVID times. We've had artists that do hackathons with the EU and build apps like right when everybody was in lockdown. These are the artists that, even if they're musicians or whatever, like they have the brain and formula to work with other scientists to create new solutions. Yeah, and we foster that in our space.
Yeah, interesting. Julia, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a very important point that in these last months we have seen how important creators are for society, because of course the sector is so affected by the lockdowns and the restrictions, but on the other side, no other sector has been as quickly in developing solutions and bringing new products, new offers into the world that have helped kind of everyone around there, no matter where they're from, because all of a sudden everyone was at home, and the new products that were coming that were helping everyone through this time were creative products, were products that came from the creative industries. And I mean, what we've also seen is that this fear of not getting enough of the cake that people sometimes have is quite irrational, because we've seen that together we can actually make the cake a bit bigger over the last months also, in terms of that there were products and solutions that no one knew were possible before. So not wanting to kind of make this the crisis smaller as it is, but it has also shown the potential of creative communities and the potential of bringing people that would normally never meet together and breaking silos and taking on a solution-oriented approach.
Yeah, and I think you're making a good point there. Is if you are facing a challenge that no one has been facing before, the only way to find solutions is being creative, because you don't have reference points. You can't be analytical or anything like that. In order to find the great breakthrough idea, you have to apply creativity. And which other sector is best trained at that than creatives? And they may not be the scientists who then can implement the ideas, but they might have the original spark of an idea of how to approach something. And then again, in a collaborative effort, real solutions can be created. That's a very powerful setup of bringing different skills together. But I also have.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And we've seen many technological things happening, but in the end, it's not about the technology. It's about the people that have an idea and turn them into technology, or that use the technology in order to arrive at a solution with that. So no matter whether it's about digital or analog, in the end, it's always about people. And I think creative communities have a kind of a human-centered approach at the very heart of their every doing. So that again has shown over the last months, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. One
and
other
ethical
thing,
maybe.
Yeah.
Also, I think what is also important, I think, in these times is the discussion, especially when it comes to nighttime, where people also want to stay anonymous or want to stay in their like protected communities. That you also have the ethical questions of tracing apps and what to do with this information and everything. And I can also just agree that we have a very close collaboration and partnership with people from the tech scene who help us to find the right providers for this kind of tracing, that they use encrypted, decentralized technology. So there's also not a misuse of information.
I mean, we are basically finding ourselves in 1984 right now. It's picture perfect, everything that we described as the worst nightmare, and for good reasons, but it is kind of like that. So the aspect of understanding the importance doesn't change the fact that a lot of this might be uncomfortable to a lot of people.
And show solidarity beyond your own peer group. I think we also tried to show this with the United We Stream project that 8% of our income went to the civil sea rescue or to other social projects because we wanted to show that there is a crisis and we are in the middle of it and we are probably one of the most affected one. But there are also people who are in a much worse situation at the moment. And so I think we had like 50,000 euros of our income in Berlin went to the civil sea rescue in Greece.
Yeah, that's great outcome. I've received one question here on a similar topic. What do communities do in the winter when the weather is worse and the numbers rise? How do we get people excited for streams and digital events after a summer full of outdoor activities? Because I think people have slowly started to get used to, okay, something is happening, I can be outdoors, I can have fun with other people, I can meet them. Most likely that may be changing when things have to be indoors again. So how do we get people excited about digital get-togethers? What are your ideas? What are your thoughts?
I can only say that the ideas that we have at the United We Stream are much more into also connecting the community, also having discussions, dialogues about the situation, bringing also experts, health experts into a panel, for instance, where also DJs take part. So beyond streaming music, also learning more about the individual stories of artists and the people behind it. So all the sound engineers, people who are bookers, who are basically out of work at this moment, and have a conversation. And I think we can still be a very interesting platform around these topics because we are 100% target group, which is affected the most at the moment.
Any thoughts?
I was trying to think of an answer that was like, what do we do when it's for fun? But it's not really fun right now. And what we try to do is have artists. One thing we do is if you're a musician, producer, or a DJ, or visual artist, and you've never spoken on a panel, or if you've never moderated one, we like to now turn the narrative with these personas, these artists, and let them have a platform to speak. So actively right now we've been like booking panel pickers for South by Southwest for these artists, submitting stuff for like MuTech, and trying to generate their stories. Behind all their art, there is like societal topics as well, besides what's going on with the crisis. And this is important to discuss it. Like you mentioned, have a platform to speak. This is what I'm focusing on at the moment at Factory Berlin, is to hear what's going on really. And
yeah, I mean, we've seen this at Patreon too, where at the beginning, when COVID happened, a lot of musicians came to Patreon and signed up. We had like over 50,000 creators launched the platform in March alone. And the original idea for every musician was like, I'm going to stream concerts, I'm going to stream DJ sets. But ultimately, is that really what the audience wants to see? The 5 million additional stream, like it came to definitely to a saturated element. And there's much more to an artist life than just doing a live concert or a DJ mix. And that's what we see now more and more during the last couple of months and weeks now, where people actually go beyond the first idea of, okay, I'm going to play a song or I'm going to play a DJ set, and instead do all kinds of creative things of going to their record archives and talking about the records that influenced them, or inviting friends to a conversation about a total different topic, or all of a sudden talk about their interest in other types of arts, etc., and explore multiple different fields and get a little looser in the concept of, okay, I can only do a DJ set or I can do a live concert. And I think that's what we already see. But you wanted to say something, Julia?
Yeah, I think what we've started to do more intensely is create opportunities for interaction despite the fact that we have digital formats. So, for example, invite everyone to really participate in these formats. When we had the big innovation camp in August, we sent little boxes to the 300 participants that we had in a physical form, so they had actually something at home that they could work with and that we would take on in the format and kind of create interaction, despite the fact that we're all kind of at different places in the country or in the world, and to allow for real discussion with diverse groups and kind of have people engage, because what we are all missing, I think, or what we've seen is that streaming or seeing dialogues taking place is more like a consuming information or consuming other people's stories and ideas. And I think that's nice to get inspired, but in the end, everyone wants to kind of engage and create opportunities for that. We've seen is very important.
That's almost a perfect ending. I think we're at the end of this panel. So let's not just focus on the negative sides. And I think we all agree that we all hope for a future where it's not just Zoom calls for the next years to come, and where we hopefully can get back to some real life interaction. But there's also a lot of fun and interaction to be had digitally. So let's all be creative. Let's come together and explore wonderful ideas. Thank you so much for participating in this panel. And I'm excited to see more of the work that you all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.